Welcome to That Digital Take. I'm your host, Torri Webster. Hello, folks. Welcome back to That Digital Take. Very excited to have you back today. I've been on the run. I'm always on the run. I was singing the OC song. I've been on the run, driving in the sun. I'm always on the run. So let's start with a quick little life recap. I was in the French Alps with Club Med. If you're unfamiliar with Club Med, it's an all-inclusive hotel chain. And it's pretty funny because I think their reputation precedes them a little bit. We were telling some of our friends and family that we were going on this Club Med extravagant press trip to the French Alps, and they all were kind of giving us eyes like, oh, you're going to Club Med. And I'm thinking, what am I missing here? Like, yeah, it's an all-inclusive experience. I'm pretty excited. And anyways, turns out the original vibes of Club Med are kind of swingers club. Like that's what they were known for in like the 70s, 80s, 90s. So they're rebranding. Let's just put it that way. I was not there to swing, but I was there to have a great time. So it was really fun. And we went with another couple friend of ours and some other influencers. And it was honestly like a winter wonderland, I guess is the best way to describe it. For the people that were great snowboarders and skiers in the group, they said it was the best pow they had ever felt under their feet. They were crying happy tears on the mountains. For me, it was just another reason to remind myself that I'm a shit skier and that I wish I learned when I was a kid. I think the thing about learning new skills when you're an adult is that it's just so much harder, right? Like my fear stops me. You know what it is, the fear, because I think like straight up, I'm pretty athletic, not to toot my own horn, but like I'm pretty athletic. So I always kind of thought I would take to skiing. And over the last couple of years, as I've tried to get into it, like I'm just not good. And I think it's because I'm fearful of the speed. So like as soon as you get up high on those mountains and you start to pick up your pace, and that's how you can really start to carve and like hone your skills, that's where I just freak out. And then I'm like pizza, and then I'm nervous, and then anxiety. So yeah, in that way, it kind of sucked for me because like everyone else in my friend group is professional level snowboarders and I'm like a beginner skier. So there was a little bit of a disconnect there for me over the trip. But listen, I wore really cute ski outfits. I sipped champagne like it was my job. Lots of hot chocolate, lots of cute little moments by the fire. I really can't complain. I did make the most of it. All that to say, I chose fashion over actual skiing. Life was good. No complaints. However, then everybody caught a stomach bug. Now, this is the stuff that doesn't show up on social media when we're on press trips for a few reasons. One, we're there to promote the resort, and genuinely, we did have the best time. It had nothing to do with the resort, and sometimes these things are like so out of everybody's control, and it doesn't really feel fair to put people on blast. Did we maybe get it from like the food? Who knows? Like it's so unclear. All that to say, my friend, her boyfriend, and my boyfriend all caught like a wicked stomach bug. So that really sucked. And it was funny because all the feedback from the friends were like, oh my God, it looks like you guys had the best time. And we're like, no, we definitely did. But like everybody got really sick. But that's the stuff we keep offline. And that's the stuff I save for the pod. That's like the true behind the scenes. But anyways, we got back. Thank God I truly got off scot-free because they got sick just as we were leaving France. And I was going directly from France onto a Disney cruise. And the last thing you need in your life is a stomach bug as you're heading on a cruise, as I'm sure you can imagine. So thank God to all the gods that I believe in that I didn't get sick, because I was like, oh, like that just would have been my nightmare. So I got to Disney World and I was actually joined by my whole family. This was crazy. It's the first time I've ever been able to bring, it's even the first time I think I've ever been able to bring more than a +1 on a press trip. So I brought a +3. I had my brother and then I had my parents with me. Unfortunately, my sister couldn't come because of like work stuff and she has a lot of animals, so she couldn't take the time away. But I got my brother and my parents on board and I was able to bring them on their first press trip. So that was super special. And we started the trip with 2 days at Walt Disney World in Florida. And it was amazing because I got to kind of show my brother the behind the scenes of all the new rides and, you know, get like the full Disney experience. We drank around the world at Epcot, all that good stuff. And then from there, we hopped onto the cruise ship. Now, the cruise ship was only a 3-day cruise, which is kind of an iconic amount of time. It's like not too long, but just enough time to like relax and get a full kind of deep dive into the ship. And the reason that we were all invited is because the new Disney Treasure is now setting sail. They have their first inaugural sail with real customers coming up like right over Christmas time. But this was the first media tour. So there was about, I want to say 1,500 media, global media from all over the world. And that's what makes these trips so special, is really a deep dive into, you know, getting to know how other creators work, seeing the magic of such a big global brand like Disney and how they activate on a press trip like this. So it really was such a cool experience. And we got one day at Castaway Cay, which is their private island. We obviously got so much time to explore the ship, and I got some really cool content out of it, and that is actually what sparked my topic for this week. So it was funny because one of the PR reps, she was like doing a tour of one of the beautiful suites, and she had sent a video into the WhatsApp group with all the creators saying, hey guys, if you haven't already, like definitely come check out this suite because there's like some cool features to it. And so this was a great deep dive because I basically took that as inspo, and I was like, okay, let's go right at 8 a.m. before anyone gets access. Like I've told you guys, I always like really pride myself on being the first one to post about it or the first one to talk about the cool new thing, because I think that's really when you can tap into that virality. So I was lucky enough to get access, and I dove right in, and I took this cool video. It was like a transition video of this beautiful kind of luxe bathroom in the royal suite, and it starts with kind of this I don't even know how I would describe it. Like it was mirror, and then when you click the button it turns into ocean. So it looks like reflection just of the bathroom, but then when you click the button then you see that you're setting sail on the cruise in the ocean. So I was like, super cool feature. I'm sure this will perform well online. And so I got it up right away, and I was correct. It went viral both on Instagram and TikTok. So this kind of like brought up some other feelings. So we were kind of chatting about creating that virality or creating those exciting moments on social media. And as we all know, there are so many like changing algorithms these days. It feels almost impossible to keep up with everything. But when we do have those acts of genius, or like those moments where I just feel like, especially I'm on the pulse, I like get it, I understand how that went viral, and there is strategy behind it, and it's not so simple. So that's what inspired today. And I wanted to chat about 5 actionable tips to stay ahead when it comes to creating strong engagement and creating virality. And I want to use this Disney example as the case study because I think it's a really strong example of following very specific tips, but then knowing that not always, but those things can absolutely create a moment of excitement online. And so I wanted to chat about those 5 things today. And hopefully you guys can use this as a bit of a benchmark for heading into the new year, especially if you're thinking about content strategy and going back to the basics, right? Like I think at this time of year, especially, we're at the end of 2024, it's really easy to feel that sense of burnout. It's easy to feel like your creativity is lacking. And I think sometimes keeping it simple and keeping it, you know, really straightforward, like this video was, is a great way to just stay ahead and also realize that you don't have to put so much pressure on yourself. Like sometimes I find the videos that I put the most amount of effort in completely flop. So I think just reminding ourselves that it's okay to keep it simple, and it's okay to kind of follow some of these strategic outlets that can help us get better. Okay. So tip number 1, prioritizing authenticity over perfection. Now, we've talked a lot about this on the podcast, but this is something I have to almost tirelessly remind myself, especially near the end of the year. Like I just said, it's the time when I start to doubt my abilities when it comes to creation. Again, it can be burnout. It can just be that you've like shot so much over the year and you're just like tired. So just going back to like, how can I show up most authentically? So why does this work? Well, one, obviously both platforms love this. They reward relatability, as we know. Audiences love that authentic content over that super polished production. Okay, so we again don't have to put the pressure on ourselves always to come up with this like 5-star Oscar performance. It can sometimes just be as simple as a moment in time that feels really true to you. And why is this actionable and why is this something that we can implement? Well, showing behind the scenes and these clips, like I said, like this was truly just a behind the scene moment, showing access to content that other people wouldn't otherwise have access to since I was the first one on the cruise ship. And it was a real life experience. It was also super unfiltered, just a very genuine overview and tour of this suite. So I think just, again, reminding ourselves not to shy away from being ourselves, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect, even if it's just a really quick 15 seconds, right? Like, again, I think we're getting into these habits, myself included, of overcomplicating things. And then when I find success with these videos, I'm like, oh my God, Torri, it's really so simple. Like, it really is. Okay, so number 2. Hook the viewers in the first 3 seconds. Now, we all know that this works, but I feel like we, again, forget. So why does this work? Obviously, TikTok and Instagram prioritize watch time. So the longer that people are engaged and it grabs their attention immediately, we're obviously increasing the likelihood of viewers watching this content all the way until the end. And I will add one caveat to this. Like, I know everyone's been saying long form, but like, I don't know. Recently, I feel like both platforms are really prioritizing short form video, specifically Instagram Reels. It feels like the videos that are under 20 seconds, under 15 seconds perform the best. Now, again, I'm not saying that's like expert opinion. I'm just kind of reading the vibe. Like I look at my content like the stock market. I'm like, are we up? Are we down? Like, what's the situation? And I feel like right now, the short form content is actually taking precedent over the long form content. TikTok is a whole other conversation that we're actually going to chat about in the next episode. So I'll just leave it there for now. But I think specifically on Instagram and on YouTube Shorts, it's all about short form content. So for example, I feel like content where you're adding value specifically. So like, here's why this product changed my life, or I bet you didn't know this about this thing in Toronto. I always go back to that. Like, what is the value add for the audience? And if we look at the Disney example specifically, it was access to a luxury experience that someone wouldn't otherwise be able to see. So again, value and short, like those are like the two key takeaways. Okay. Number 3, leaning into trending audio and features. Again, seems really obvious, but we forget. Like sometimes we're just leveraging original music or we're leveraging original audio and we're wondering why things aren't like picking up in the algorithm. So why does this work? Well, using trending sounds and obviously effects, stickers, all those things, they boost discoverability. And as we know, Instagram has even made more of an effort to become a little bit more like TikTok, where you can show up on the explore page, you can show up for people that don't follow you. And the algorithm tends to favor that content and it really leverages it and it pushes it to new audiences, especially if you're using popular features. So here's the thing that I found so interesting. I went to the TikTok tab when I was posting this Disney video. And I actually, for the first time in a long time, went like deep into the explore tab and into the discoverability of like the top trending songs. And I was like, you know what? For shits and giggles, I am going to choose the number 1 trending song on TikTok. And I'm going to incorporate that into the video. So it was a brand new Ariana Grande song, and it was the number 1 on the charts for TikTok. So I used that video, and the video has 1 million views. I don't think that's an accident. Like, genuinely, more than ever, I feel like music plays an integral role in how content performs. Again, on Instagram and on TikTok, but you have to consider, right? Like there's such an integration of media, and we've talked about this like on another level as well, but there, like, it's not just the video. It's the fact that all of the music labels are paying to promote certain songs right now. It's the fact that, you know, certain artists want to top the charts and they actually put money behind making sure that videos perform with that music. Like, I know that that sounds crazy, but a lot of this is actually paid for by the labels, by the musicians. So keep that in mind when you're creating content. They're trending for a reason and it will help performance. Okay. Number 4. Again, these feel obvious, but these are like my own reminders for myself at the end of the year as I fight this burnout and as I try to like just create content that is continuously going to perform. So posting consistently and at optimal times. Now, The consistency part obviously matters. Why does this work? Regular posting obviously increases your visibility. It allows your audience members to see you're active. But then the timing also ensures your audience sees your content when they're most active. And this is going to be different for everybody, but I do think people are curious about this. So like based on my research, using some analytics and tools to look at times on TikTok and on Instagram, like for TikTok, for example, 6 to 10 p.m., usually in the evening, that's like a super peak time. People after work, after dinner, kind of doing that nightly scroll before they go to bed. On Instagram, like everybody kind of knows this, but it skews a bit younger in terms of demo as well. And skews a bit older in terms of demo as well. So people will be more active during the day, whether that's 12 to 3 p.m. And again, these are just like benchmarks. It doesn't mean you have to follow them specifically, but posting 3 to 5 times weekly for TikTok can be really good because you're staying in the feed. And I think Instagram, fights for a little bit more. So 4 to 7 times a week on Instagram to really stay active on your profile. So of course, I'm not saying you have to follow these insane benchmarks. I think I'm someone that also posts pretty intuitively, but I am very conscious of it. Like, for example, I would never wake up in the morning and like post something at 8 a.m. just because I know for me, that's not when my audience is the most active. I think posting at like 3 or 4 p.m. is like where I know like my audience is like fresh off of work and they're going to like engage in that video. So again, it will be different for everyone. It's about being a bit thoughtful about who your audience is, when they're the most active. But again, looking at those back-end analytics and really analyzing them can help because the platforms try to trigger you to show you like when it will work best. So yeah, follow those guidelines. Okay. Finally, number 5, encourage interaction in every post. And again, I don't even do this. This is really hard, but this does help performance. So why does this work? Both algorithms prioritize content that generate engagement. They want to see the likes. They want to see the comments. But as we know, they mostly want to see the replays. They want to see the reshares. They want to say, who are you sharing this to that's also going to view this video? So take the action item, use the interactive captions, right? So it would be like, what do you prefer? Would you stay in room A or room B? Like tag a friend who would love this. It's almost like that whole giveaway sentiment, like this, tag this, drop your favorite emoji if you agree. Like all of those little prompts can really help create engagement on your posts and keep the conversation alive. And ultimately, again, just to like close that whole loop, because we were using Disney as a bit of a benchmark, but I think the whole sentiment of why that video worked is the idea was, would you stay here? Like that was the value was I'm giving you access and a look into something that doesn't exist. And then the takeaway was, would you stay here? And I think that creates ultimately conversation, right? So that's what creates virality. And even if I look on TikTok on the performance, or if I lock on Instagram Reels, and this is an interesting one too, because this is a video that went viral on both platforms, which I find that that's quite rare nowadays. And again, I can never really have a pulse on where videos will perform, but typically if something goes super mega viral on TikTok, it's not necessarily performing on Reels. It could have 1 million views on TikTok and only 20,000 views on Instagram Reels. So I found it really interesting that this video, and I followed all of these steps on both videos, trending music on both platforms, creating engagement with my audience, all of those things. I followed these steps on both platforms and they both went viral. So again, I'm not saying there's a recipe to creating something to go viral because again, it's so specific to each integral moment in the video. It depends on the lighting. It depends on the text that you used. It depends on the emojis that you used. It depends on the caption. It depends on the music. Like all of these things help create virality. But I think keeping these kind of 5 tips in mind, and like I said, especially for creators as we head into a new year and we want to stay fresh and we want to stay on top of trends and where we're heading and all of those good things. I just think these are almost a foundation to go back to when we start to lose touch. And I think this is also the time of year where people play the comparison game and it's comparing partnerships, it's comparing numbers, it's comparing press trips, it's all of those things just because it's a very superficial time of year is a bad thing to say, but a little bit, right? Like I feel like January is actually a really nice time because everyone kind of goes inward and we start to do the self work. Whereas I think December is a little tough because everyone's just like projecting a lot of energy. So again, sometimes I do these episodes for my own self-reflection and for my own reminders. So I hope that these 5 tips were helpful today, and I hope that you can take them forward into 2025. Now, in our next episode, we're going to do a deeper dive into the manifestations and all of the good things that I want and the good fortune that I want for everyone in 2025, and chat a little bit more strategically. So I hope I see you next week for that episode. But until then, love you, mean it, and bye.